Good morning again, New Brunswick. This is Charlie Cradaville, and we are here at Hidden Grounds Espresso Bar on Easton Avenue for another special edition of the New Brunswick Today show. We are interviewing candidates who want to represent you, New Brunswick, on the Tuesday, November 7th ballot, and we are joined this morning by Mr. Michael Habib, candidate for Assembly. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So, tell us right off the bat, you're a young guy, this is your first time running for office. What made you want to get in the race for New Jersey Assembly?
Sure. So I've always been interested in politics. Growing up, I was always watching the news, which is not something most people do. And then I went, for my schooling, I always wanted to kind of stay in the political realm. Really in foreign policy, but I really felt like this was a good launching pad for me, especially in lieu of the last election. I was pretty, disgruntled with both parties and kind of the way that the partisanship kind of flipped apart, I think, some of the decency within American civil discussion and discourse.
So you're not running with a party, you're running independent?
Correct, I'm running independent. It's me, my brother who runs my website, and then I have one other friend who kind of sits on with us as a kind of a policy advisor, and kind of we work together on the whole campaign, and that's it.
Very cool. And so this election is going to be Legislative District 17, so there's 5 towns that get to vote. You've got New Brunswick, you're from Franklin.
Yep.
And also Milltown, North Brunswick, and Piscataway are going to get the chance to vote in this race. So tell folks, why should they pick you? What are you going to do for them if you win?
Sure. So, first of all, I'm a local guy. I was born in Oak Ridge in Middlesex County, and then I came to Rutgers for my undergrad. I went to grad school a little bit more north, but I still lived in this area, and then now I'm back here again for my MBA. So I know New Brunswick, Piscataway, Somerset, Franklin. These are my towns. This is where I really grew up and kind of matured, I think, in a lot of ways. As far as representing our district, I think we need something different. I know one of our assemblymen, Joe Egan's kind of been on for, I think, 30 plus years now. And then Danielson's new, but I think there's something fresh that's needed. And especially in this state, we've seen both Democratic and Republican governors, and then obviously democratically controlled Assembly and State Senate lead us down a bad path, and it's not working the way these two parties want to run it. Something needs to change. I think I bring problem-solving skills. I think I bring a pragmatism that's not really existent today. It's become a lot of back and forth, and we say, listen, there's a middle ground somewhere that we need to kind of find and bring together, and I'm the guy that'll do that.
Okay, and what types of things will you do? Let's say you win, you're going to be one of 80 people in the assembly.
Yeah.
You'll be lucky to get anything passed. What do you?
It's true.
What would be your signature issue or your top issues that you would fight for?
So I think that there's 2 really big issues that I think we need to focus on. One of them is taxes. I mean, that's the biggest issue on everyone I've spoken to's agenda, really. How are we going to make it more affordable to live here? I was looking to purchase my first home, and I realistically didn't see the point in doing it. My property taxes were going to be too high, the cost of living here is too expensive, and it really made me second guess what I wanted to do. And I'm renting again now, which is unfortunate. As a 27-year-old millennial, I'd like to be able to purchase, and I think that's some way where we need to really focus on is driving down these costs so people can stay here. People are leaving New Jersey in unprecedented numbers, I think more than any other state. So it's really tackling that issue. Not just with property tax, that's a big one, but your sales taxes, and then how with the new tax plan from the Trump and the GOP, how are we going to make this work for New Jersey? It's going to kill us if that gets passed. And I'm hoping everyone from New Jersey especially, we have a couple of Republican congressmen who are, I don't know if they've necessarily declared against it yet, so they better wake up and do it soon, because that's going to be a serious problem for us. The second one, I think, comes in the form of marijuana legalization and the tie there with criminal justice reform. So they're pretty interlocked. That's one thing I do agree with Phil Murphy, that, marijuana charges end up getting you a federal record, and then it can impact your right to vote, impact your ability to get a career, and the black to white incarceration rates here are incredibly disproportionate, more so than most other states. So that's a problem for me. And then just in terms of the marijuana legalization piece of it, it would keep people from going to jail for something that is not, in my opinion, worthy of jail time. It would, I think, wake a lot of people up to the realities of what marijuana actually is. I think a lot of the laws and the stigma around it is based on a very old way of thinking and not based in science or reality. And then the third part is we can tax it. And we need every, piece of let me rephrase that statement. We need ways to bring down the cost in other areas, like property taxes.
Right,
so if
right.
we can tax marijuana, so that's a luxury item. That's something you choose to want, unless it's medical, obviously. But for recreational purposes, it's a want. So if you want it, and get taxed on it, that's fine. But we can use that tax money to bring that tax in other places where people like a homeowner. You need to own a home, I think. So it's multifaceted, in my opinion.
So, you mentioned, one of your opponents has been in office a real long time. Do you support term limits for Assembly and Senate?
I support term limits for any type of political office. I think people get very complacent in kind of career politician roles. And it's funny, going into this election cycle, that was one of the biggest knocks on Trump, where he was not a career politician. That was like one of the things I didn't necessarily have a problem with, per se. Now, he is a problem in himself and his persona, but not being a career politician does not mean you cannot do the job. You're here to represent your constituents. If you're not representing your constituents and you're really just there for yourself or your special interests, that's a problem to me. And I think by being a career politician, you get to kind of get ingratiated into the machine of the whole system, and it's very easy to get lost.
Yep.
Whereas by setting term limits, you have to be accountable to the people who are really voting for you in every election. And I think that's so important. Now, locally and in our state, I believe it, and I think more importantly, I think federally, for both Congress and Senate, or the House of Representatives and Senate, I'm sorry, they need to have term limits. It's a problem for us, and that's why I think you see so much ineptitude and really failure to get anything done. It's because you have these people who just build these roles. They don't know anything else. They don't have to leave. They're really not worried. Mitch McConnell, he's not really scared to leave his seat. It's a shame. He's terrible.
And so you mentioned the President of the United States. Donald Trump, a lot of people think he should be impeached and removed from office. Are you one of those people?
So I think that it's unfortunate, but I think it's too soon to say that. I think his behavior, his lack of moral leadership, his inability to show any compassion, I think these were all problems that we saw before the election, and I think those should have been disqualifying characteristics of him before he was elected. He's been elected, which means enough people in this country were able to look past his racism, his sexism, his xenophobia, which is a problem in and of itself. But I don't think it's enough to impeach him. I think everything going on with the Russia investigation, I mean, it looks like a duck, smells like a duck, it's a duck. But we haven't got the smoking gun yet. I think calls for impeachment now are a bit premature in the sense that by calling for it now, without anything clearly linking him to this Russia collusion investigation, it gives his campaign the ability to say, look, it's a witch hunt. They have nothing yet to prove. So just me, I want him gone. As soon as we get that smoking gun, I'll be the first one to sign up with Tom Steyer's,
one guy.
His impeachment campaign. I'll be the first one to do it once we get that smoking gun. And I'm sure it's out there. I'm sure he did something. It doesn't seem right to me. But until that day, we're going to have to work to fight him on our policy.
Okay. And I want to also ask you about our governor, Chris Christie, who's kind of like precursor to the president. You might not know this, but should you be elected to the Assembly, you would actually have the power to impeach Governor Christie, even though he'd be out of office. The New Jersey Constitution allows governor and other state officials to be impeached up to 2 years after they leave office. So if you're in, you would have a potentially a choice to make as to whether or not Chris Christie should be impeached. Where do you stand on that?
So I would have to look into that a little bit more just to fully understand, I guess, what that would mean as a not posthumous, but a post-gubernatorial impeachment would actually entail. I'm not too familiar. Personally, I think once he's out of office, I'd rather not hear his name again, and I'd rather leave him kind of in the history books as a failed governor of the state, and I think that'll be a lesson learned for a lot of people. He really, I think he failed us our state in a multitude of ways, but one thing that really bothers me, and it's not just to Governor Christie, but I think a lot of elected officials, they use their position as a launching pad, which I understand is a career move, but not, for example, if I get elected to this position, I plan to serve out my term. I don't plan on making a position change until that term is done. I complete what I've signed up for. I'm here asking you guys to vote for me for Assembly. I want to finish my term as Assembly. I was very bothered by when he decided to run for president, he basically shut off the governor's switch. And I'm really not a governor anymore. I'm going to run my own campaign.
And he went hard right.
Yeah,
yeah.
Incredibly. And, I think that is a disservice to the state, and I think it's just very disrespectful to the people who did vote you in to serve as the governor. So, like I said, I have a lot of problems with the guy. I think Probably a bit, to be honest. I think the Bridgegate scandal, he got very lucky getting off there. And it's. I'd rather just leave his name and his legacy and in the history books, like I said, as a failed senator.
I'm curious. You're the only independent candidate in this district running for state office. I'm curious. Have you decided who you're going to vote for governor?
I actually have not. So I've been really thinking a lot about it, and like I said, I said to you earlier, I did get a chance to speak to both Phil Murphy and Kim Lugano. I know I'm not voting for Kim Lugano. Let's just put that one out there. She seems too much of the kind of the status quo with Christie, and that's actually what I asked her when I got to speak with her. I asked her, what did you disagree with him on? This is what Murphy's running behind you as another Christie. What is the difference? Or is the big difference between the two? And her answer was the gas tax and remodeling the state house. I mean, if that's all you could point to me in the 8 years of this administration, I'm like, that's a weak answer to me, and didn't change my opinion. So I think it'll be more of the same. And I just think policy-wise, she has a much more conservative and closed-minded view than I would like to see for our state. I'm still kind of feeling out the candidates, and I think ultimately, at the end of the day, that's something I'd like to leave up to the people who are supporting me. I don't think any gubernatorial candidate in particular has jumped out to me as someone that I think needs to be our next leader. I know who I don't want, like I said. So I think I'm going to leave that up to people who I know are voting for me. I'd like to let them make their own decision on that, and I just hope that they're doing their research. I think there are 5 other independent candidates who are running for governor outside of the 2 main ones, and most people don't even know that. So all I ask is look up the independent candidates, like get a taste for what else is out there. You have more than 2 options.
Right on. And so you are running for one of 2 seats in the assembly for this district. You don't have a running mate, a teammate. You're on your own. So have you decided if you're going to vote for any of the other 4 that are running to join you in the assembly?
Yeah, I haven't landed on who I'm voting for yet. I will be voting for a second assemblyman. I'm down to 2, and I kind of leave it there. I'm still kind of working this one out. Again, it's one of those things where I like to leave this up to them. I'm big on allowing people to really educate themselves and make a decision on your own belief system. And I think that endorsements are great, and I'm always looking for an endorsement from any of these different groups or newspapers. But at least for myself, I'd like to let the constituents make that decision.
Now, a couple of the big issues here in Middlesex County or in your district, transportation. We're right here near the New Jersey Transit train station. We benefit from having the Rutgers bus system here and stuff like that. What are you going to do to make it easier to get around?
So, all right, a couple things on that. One, I think just overall, and not necessarily just to the New Brunswick, transportation system, but larger New Jersey as a whole, I think we really need to clean it up. Not just in like a cleanliness sense, but really like the efficiency of how it operates. I mean, the trains are a bit better than the buses, but I know the buses are consistently running late. I mean, I know my girlfriend used to commute to the city for work, and her bus was consistently running late or not showing up, and they were having serious problems. And she showed up like 20 minutes late because of the transportation. And it's funny, I have a lot of friends who do work in the city, and it's kind of similar sentiment that NJ Transit running late is a valid excuse for them to show up for 20 minutes late to work, and that's a problem. We're so close to the city, and part of I think the appeal of moving to New Jersey, especially for people from out of state, is the proximity to New York, the proximity to Philly, the proximity to our own cities like New Brunswick and Newark's starting to get better, Jersey City, all that stuff, and it needs to work better. We should be, I think, the leading transportation hub as opposed to kind of the second leading one. I support the Gateway project. If that comes, I would tell our government to definitely support that and ask the federal government to help assist us there. And then I think for our New Brunswick train station specifically, I would like to see even greater expedited express train to the city from here. I know we have one that cuts it down, the commute down about 45 minutes, as opposed to like the 57 to 58 minute ride to the city. But I know a lot of people are starting to move to this area, especially for the proximity of New York. And then I know the Amazon project is a big one. I know both, I think Phil and Kim have talked about it in Newark, but I've also seen plans for it here in New Brunswick. So if it comes to New Brunswick, it's another case to make for an even better expedited train ride to the city.
And another big issue here is education, the cost of higher education. It's out of reach for many people. We do have a small county college campus here, but we've got tens of thousands of students that are at Rutgers that are in your district. What are you going to do to make sure that they can actually afford to pay for their tuition and not drown in debt?
Of course. So a couple things on that. First of all, I'm a Rutgers alumni. I did my undergrad at Rutgers University, and I'm actually a current Rutgers MBA student at the business school. So I 100% sympathize in that situation. So a couple things. Personally, my belief is that university education, especially at the state level, should be tuition free for students. It's an investment in our future. I think it's a huge miscalculation to assume that education is some sort of a right that you have to be able to afford it. That's such a bad sentiment, because if you invest in education, people can work in different areas and skill sets that will eventually contribute to our economy and make our country a better place in the state. By forcing people to not go to college because they can't afford it, I think we have a serious loss of potential talent that we're not maximizing. I mean, I had student loans from my graduate school when I went, and that was terrible. I was lucky enough to have support in paying those off, but I know plenty of friends of mine who have $100,000 in school debt, and they, every paycheck they get, a good chunk of that's going to their loans. They can't afford to buy a house. They can't afford to kind of move on and get that next step in their lives. So again, fully support public education being funded. I think Rutgers has a serious problem in the way that they've been kind of spending all the extra money in the sports program. Like now, I was very excited when we won Big Ten. Again, I'm a big Rutgers football fan. However, the amount of money that we've poured into that program, while the cost of tuition for students to learn is skyrocketing year over year, it doesn't add up to me. Our priority should be our students and making sure that the students are getting the best education they can, and until it is free, at a cost they can afford. We should not be racking up the prices where in-state students are now thinking about leaving the state because Rutgers costs are not as affordable as they once were to want to keep it in state. That's a problem.
Sure. All right, so last question. You're familiar with the area, New Brunswick. You went to school here. What types of changes would you like to push for? Would you like to see here? What types of changes might people notice if you get in the assembly here for New Brunswick?
Yeah, so like I said, I really do think that the Amazon project, we should make a seriously concentrated effort to make the case that New Brunswick should be that hub.
So you think Amazon should put their second headquarters here?
As opposed to Newark, if it does come into New Jersey, yeah. I would argue that we bring it here.
Do you think they should get the $7 billion tax credit that the governor has proposed?
So I think if their commitment to keeping the employees based in New Jersey is accurate. So if they do bring the hub here and there's a commitment to keeping, I think they're going to have 50,000 employees at the new hub. If they do that here and they promise to keep those employees within New Jersey, I would support that. With business, it's tough. You need to make the climate exciting for business to come. That is true. However, I do not support knocking the corporate tax rate down. I know they initially wanted 15%, and it's down 20% now in the new tax, but I don't support that. I think it's too much. I think you do need to give some incentives, but we need to be tackling these corporations at a reasonable level because they're not, when they get the taxes dropped, they're not sitting there and funneling that money back to us. That's lining pockets of CEOs and executives. We all know it. Let's not try to pretend like dropping that tax rate is going to somehow re-infuse our economy.
Okay. And so anything else we might expect to see if you...
So one thing I do want to also kind of call out is just kind of housing prices and renters protection here in New Brunswick.
Right.
So as New Brunswick continues to grow, if Amazon comes here, you see it now here downtown. When I first came to Rutgers, every year over year, I guess, downtown New Brunswick is slowly starting to expand into, I guess, a more expensive area to live. And so the rent controls are not necessarily in place that people who have been living there for 20, 30 years are now starting to have to think about leaving their homes to keep up with the cost. So I really want to make sure that as we continue to expand New Brunswick, and we really should. I mean, it's a beautiful city, and I think it has a lot of potential. We're so close to New York, to Philly, and the city itself has a lot of life. But I think making sure that our rent controls are in place so we don't see a gentrification like we see in Brooklyn is super important. I would really fight to make sure that we keep those, or let renters who are living here today have a viable option to stay in the home.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This is Mr. Michael Habib.
Thank you very
wants
much.
to be your next assemblyman for Legislative District 17. Again, that election is going to take place on Tuesday, November 7th in Piscataway, Franklin, New Brunswick, Milltown, and North Brunswick. Anybody there can vote. So no matter who you're voting for, make sure you get out there and vote on Tuesday. And keep watching. We'll have another interview for you later today.
Thank you.